All right. Good morning, everyone.
Here we go.
You ready for this,
morning.
Robin? You ready? What do you think?
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
Seems fun. Let's do it.
All right. So this is the beginning of React Native Mornings. Oh, I need to use my left hand, I guess.
Say cheers.
Cheers. Yeah. I think for our listeners, the objective here is we want to just hang out and talk via video. We've had a lot of feedback that some people would like us to code and just be more available on YouTube. For now, we're not going to do this live. For now.
We'll see.
We'll
see. Maybe in the future we'll feel brave.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll see. Who knows? It's still early. We're trying to figure it out. We're feeling it out. We don't usually do video, right? It's nice when we're doing the podcast because we get the editors to edit. We're not going to edit
I don't have to make myself look nice because I know I'm not going to be on camera. So I did this all for you guys.
Thank you. And I was actually going to put stuff up on because of the first episode, I'm in my new office. I don't know if the podcast episode
New
where we talk
office,
about
new
it.
show.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I don't know if I came in here at like 10 p.m. last night and I was going to start drilling holes and putting stuff up on the wall. I was like, you know what? First episode, nothing behind me. Second episode, one picture up, two pictures up, and who knows where we end up from there, right?
Yeah, you need to build your signature background. Like Jamin's got hockey and his Calvin and Hobbes picture. Mm-hmm. He's got this signature. So you got to build that up little by little.
I don't know what it is because every time I come up with something, I keep retracting. So I don't know. We'll see. Literally the other day.
You can't commit to anything.
No. And for me, when it comes to putting holes in the wall with drywall and all that.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard. I mean, literally what I came up with was, if you remember my old office, what was behind me, I literally was I'm going to start with a clean slate and I'm going to find stuff around the house and then put them up behind me. I literally grabbed stuff and I was like, this looks familiar. And I looked at an old picture. It was the same exact stuff. So, yeah, I guess I really like that background. So we'll see what happens.
Maybe my cat might make an appearance in my background. That might be the most exciting thing about it.
There you go. I don't think... Yeah. So do you have any other pets or just one cat?
No, just a cat.
Yeah.
Just the cat. And she's enough. She's tiny, but very social and demanding.
We don't have any cats. The squirrels in our backyard. And we found a possum yesterday.
Did you name them? You got to name them.
There's a lot. There's one running right now across the fence.
We do have one particular bird that has been throwing itself into our kitchen window. And we're not totally sure why. But it keeps coming back as the same bird.
It's reflection.
I don't know what you see in here, but we should name it.
Yeah, you should. Cool. So I think so for today's episode, we're gonna just basically talk about React Native turning 10. Happy birthday. I planned on having a cupcake and the hat.
Oh, I know we didn't get party hats, but if you didn't know, React Native is turning 10.
As of tomorrow, actually.
Well, tomorrow when we're recording it, but if you're watching this, it'll probably be today.
So Thursday, March 26th will be exactly 10 years. So March 26th, 2015, Jordan Walk, who was at the time with Meta and part of the React team, I believe, at the time, he basically announced on Twitter, hey, we're open sourcing React Native. And here you go. So I guess we're considering this the birth of React Native because the entire community was able to use it.
It's when it was open sourced and it kind of became known to the broader community and not just the React, the very meta React community, the people that were at ReactConf, basically.
Yeah, so ReactConf was January 2015. I don't know the date. But that's when Tom Ochino, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. That's when he announced what React Native
That's literally
was.
when the words React Native were first uttered to the world.
And that's when the world found out that Facebook Groups, which was its own standalone app, it's now rolled into the Facebook app, was using React Native. So that's pretty cool because I think during that time, there was stuff like PhoneGap, Cordova, Xamarin, and Infinite Red's favorite Ruby Motion at the time. Some of them didn't do things well, right? Because they were like web views almost in native. So having this new technology was great.
I mean, I wasn't really aware of mobile technologies outside of just like native Android and iOS at the time. I was still doing Ruby on Rails when that all happened.
Go back to 2015. What were you doing?
Oh yeah, 2015. 2015 was a pretty big year because it's the year I got married. So I was pretty stressed out that whole year. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was working at it was my first tech job because I did code school in 2014 and then got a job out of that, and I was still at that job.
What code school did you go to?
It was called Epicodus. It was a Portland local code school. Really, really great one. It no longer exists, unfortunately.
Okay. I was going to give them a little bit of a marketing boost there.
They shut down last year, I think. So they lasted quite a while. But it was during kind of the heyday of like code schools where they were popping up all over the place. But I was doing Ruby on Rails, and it was all back-end Ruby on Rails. So I was like building microservices, API layers for our mobile team to consume. So like I was like indirectly working with mobile. Our company was an app company. It was kind of like an app factory. Like the product was that you could white label an app for a conference or event. So I was familiar with kind of like the goings on of building mobile apps. But my actual job was doing APIs with Rails.
Cool.
And I didn't start at Infinite Red until beginning of 2017. So React Native was almost 2 years old by that point.
Mm-hmm. So for me in 2015, let's see here. I know in late 13 was when I kind of left the whole soccer world that I was in. I think our listeners are familiar with that story. And that's when I joined.
Are they familiar with that story? I think we need to hear that story again.
All right. I'll go back a little bit then in time. So I grew up in Nigeria, played soccer there, semi-pro professionally a little bit at one point. And then I came to the U.S. to go to college in New York, Stony Brook University, played there for about a year, kept getting hurt. So I kind of took a step back and started coaching, which led me to North Carolina, coached college down here, went to LA, coached a little professionally out there also. And it's actually very cool to see some players that I had coached at the time. One of them is a goalkeeper for the Chilean national team now. She's doing really well in the league in Chile. And actually one other player who's the captain of the, what are they called? This is bad on my part. The Kansas City Spirit? No, that's wrong. Oof, I need to look that up. But she's really good. They had their opening day the other day. I actually want to find out their name right now. But yeah, her name is Lola Bonta. She plays for Kansas City. And she was on that team that I had coached. Kansas City Current. There we go. And so it's great to see those players still playing and playing at a high level, playing for the national team. And then, after LA, I came back to North Carolina, started coaching youth soccer here with part of the NC Courage, North Carolina Courage women's professional team program. And 2013, I got into the full tech scene. I joked about this the other day with Gant. My title was webmaster up until that point, and I love that title. I would go back to that title any day.
That's like early 2000s, like old school websites always had like contact the webmaster.
And I held on to that title, Robin. I think, I held on to that title. I did a volunteer position, which actually didn't end till 2015, but I kept that title of webmaster with that role because I just love that title. Just a little tidbit there.
That's really cool.
2013. Someone took a risk on me at that point. Basically, he was like, look, you don't have a lot of experience, but I need someone to help me build e-commerce websites. And it was in PHP and MySQL backend. So we built this whole thing from scratch. It was just me and him. And we added 2 other developers. And in 2015, actually, which is crazy. We were looking at doing some mobile stuff, but my manager and everyone else quit in 2015. And then the CTO was like, hey, seems like you're the only one that didn't quit and get the memo. Do you want to like become supervisor and grow your own team and keep running this team? And I took that on and went with it. But yeah, it was PHP, HTML, what is it? HTML5, I think it was at the time, CSS.
Oh yeah, I remember HTML when HTML5 came out.
Yeah, and it was
that
coding.
That was around the time that I was like new to coding, and I remember it coming out.
Yeah, and that was CodeIgniter. That's like the big thing that I still like look back on, and I enjoyed. CodeIgniter was really cool.
PHP.
Yeah. PHP CodeIgniter. Yeah, it was like the framework, I guess. So what we would call Expo these days. But yeah, that's what I was doing. So
I love hearing about what people were doing before tech. I feel like we got into it like roughly the same time, and like my career before tech was, I don't know if I've ever talked about what I did before.
No, go ahead.
Well, I worked for a paper company.
Dunder Mifflin?
Yeah. Well, not Dunder Mifflin, but yes, cue the Dunder Mifflin joke. It was actually a paper mill, like a legit paper mill, which is as stinky as you might think.
Paper has a smell?
Yeah, paper mills do not smell like daisies. And it was a working. Paper mills are like dangerous places.
Yeah,
so like
I'm sure.
Even the people that I worked in the office. I was like I started out as a finance intern, and then we were called business process analysts, which is very generic, like do spreadsheety, businessy things to make things more efficient. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the people that worked in the office had to wear not hard hats. We had to wear like safety glasses and high visibility vests just from our car to the office.
Oh wow. Okay.
And we all had to like back in park in the parking lot so that we'd be ready in case we had to evacuate the mill if there was an explosion or something. And then like anytime we had like an all team like whole company meeting, we would have to go out into, there was a big meeting room inside the mill that was like big enough for like all the mill workers and stuff. And so we'd have to go out there and put on, in order to get there, we had to wear a hard hat and steel-toed boots. And like, we would like, it was a maze. Wow. We would like wind our way through the paper mill. Like I couldn't go like alone. I never could have found it on my own. Like you had to have somebody who knew. It was wild. And I was like 22 to 23. This was like right out of college. It was a really wild experience. But doing all those spreadsheets, I got into VBA and I was like, oh, this coding thing is kind of fun. But no one around here can actually teach me how to do it properly. So I left and went to code school, and that was that.
Code school is good. I've heard a lot of stories like that of people going to code school and getting like a jump start or a restart in their careers, right?
Right, exactly. Because that's exactly what it was. It was like 4 months of full time. It was like 9 to 5. I obviously had to quit my job. My boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, fortunately loved me enough to pay the rent while I did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 8 to 5 every day. We were pairing the whole day, like working through the curriculum, and like every day was a different like exercise that we had to do. Learning the like from the ground up concepts, like basic coding concepts, loops, all that stuff. And then like all the way up through, we specifically learned about Git and like GitHub and all that stuff, because it was very it was very focused on, these are the skills that you'll need to actually like go be productive at a company. So we had a whole unit on Git and GitHub, and then we did like SQL before we did Active Record, and then we did Rails, and it was sort of like all the building blocks to being able to be a Rails developer.
Well, that's cool. So it was a Rails specific.
What was really key is that they placed us with a company for like a month-long unpaid internship so that we could actually like be integrated with a company, and like it's basically a month-long job interview sort of like with the ability to like see how someone works day to day. And so they liked me enough to give me a job, and that's how I got here.
That's awesome. Code schools are great. I've heard a lot. I think your code school being Rails was the first one that I've heard of that's Rails. I think most of them tend to be JavaScript.
Portland was a very Rails city at the time.
Right.
Like a lot of the company that like the biggest tech companies around here were using Rails, like Puppet, New Relic. Those are the two like really big ones. And so like that was kind of the scene in Portland, and I'm sure that's why kind of they went that direction. But I know like the rest of the world, like outside of Portland, would seem to be using all sorts of other stuff like Java, PHP, whatever. But yeah, I was happy to have the background that I did.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's cool. That's awesome. Wow. Okay. Well, trip down memory lane.
Then how did we get there? Yeah. So how did we get to React Native?
How did we get to React?
Yeah.
Each of us?
Did you start doing React Native before Infinite Red?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I was at that let's kind of go back. I was at that company until about 2016. Actually, right around this time. It was around March, I remember. 2016, I left. And I left actually for a company where I don't think I had a title at the time because the CTO was leaving and there's one other engineer. It was just a startup. So that's when I joined the startup scene. I did a jukebox company. So jukebox on your phone, you get to pick your apps, and you get to like, we did this cool thing we called nuking. So we would go to the restaurants to test the app at night, and we would actually like get rid of songs because we had the back end ability from the place to play the songs that we wanted. And we actually found that fun to do that between us. So we added that feature to the app. And actually, I remember one restaurant that we were at, this one guy was, and you could see him because he was like getting really mad at the TV. He paid up to $100 to get rid of a song that was coming up. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it was great for us. We got $100 out of it. But the company eventually kind of went away because I don't know how Spotify does it, but the lawyers for the record labels charge you an arm and a leg. Once a song plays for 30 seconds, you owe them for the full song. Yeah. So whatever happened, like, we had to pay for every song. So if someone nuked the song at 31 seconds, we were on the hook for the entire song with the record label.
I think Spotify is just big enough that they have, that they're like, basically have deals with all the labels and stuff.
So that's when I got into mobile, but very light mobile. So I did some iOS and then some Android, but it was very bare bones because I was mainly focused on the website. So we were using Parse at the time. So Parse was a MongoDB. Think of it as like
oh my gosh, I forgot about Mongo.
Yeah, it was like a MongoDB.
We used Mongo.
Yeah,
with for one specifically actions. For one of our microservices, but not the others.
Oh, well, there you go.
Because of course.
Yeah. So it was like kind of like the role I was moving into was the CTO type role there because I was doing like the PM work. I was doing the meetings with everyone, doing the Apple MDM distribution. So, and kind of working on Parse in the backend. And every now and then I'd just dip into the native side and get to do that. But after that, so I hired friends that I played soccer with to build us our web platform for the clients. And they were using React. And they were a consultancy kind of like us, like Infinite Red. And just as things went on, they kind of noticed me getting more stressed as it went on because we were getting really close to the end of our runway. So they were like, hey, it looks like you guys are going to be done in a month. It was public knowledge. I was in like a startup incubator, so everyone kind of knew everyone's business. So they were like, do you want to come over and work with us? Yeah. And it was just a lunch. And I was like, let me write out this month, but if things don't work out, I'll start next month with you all. So yes, I did join them. And I was with them for about a year and a half, and they were so we were full stack. We were 4 guys. One guy was in charge of the React web. One guy was in charge of mobile. Other guy was in charge of backend. And I kind of came in as full stack. So that's when I got into
one
React
guy was
Native.
in charge of mobile. Was that like iOS and Android?
React Native.
Okay. There you go. Spoiler alert.
Native. Exactly. React Native, and then MongoDB backend, Node.js backend. So February 2017 was when I technically started React Native.
Okay. So that's like really close to when I started, like, because I started Infinite Red in January and I did web for like 3 months. And then Jamin put me on React Native in like March or April.
Same story. Yeah. I mean, after that, just fast forward because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
2 more startups after that, both React Native. One of them was an injury prevention app that we had on the App Store. Got bought, and eventually they took the IP with them, and the app is no longer in the stores. But yeah, two startups after that, and then I reached out to Infinite Red after that, and the rest is history.
Did you happen to listen to any particular like podcast or anything?
Yes. So that last startup was full JavaScript. Well, up until this point, I was all JavaScript, but I kept hearing rumblings in the community about this thing called TypeScript that you all may have heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't get my boss on TypeScript. I think he was a very like unit test guy. And
very,
I was like,
like TDD.
Yeah, old school
purist.
TDD. Yeah, exactly. Like the first pull request is your tests for the feature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was really, it was really, really hyped for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you should be programming everything.
And I think he was on that hype train then. So, spoiler alert, I was listening to a podcast, and Robin Heinze was talking about how easy it is to change your JavaScript code to TypeScript.
I believe what I said was it's just JavaScript. You could just write JavaScript, like just turn it on and it'll still run your JavaScript. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I shared that with him, and literally he was like, "Oh, cool. Go ahead." and slowly transformed it. And I think I got to 100% transformation. But it was actually, what was cool about that startup though, was they were doing Elixir backend, and I was really enjoying Elixir. So I was doing the Elixir part of it. And I think the way Elixir works, Elixir has some types, it has type safety within it. So it was just like perfect. Like, look, you're getting it in Elixir. Why doesn't our front end have the same safety between both of them? And then your podcast episode, you and Jamin, I believe it was, just kind of secured and solidified it. So I did get it all to TypeScript before I left at the time to join Infinite Red.
It seems pretty crazy now for anyone like not to see the value of TypeScript. It seems like it's pretty universally accepted now. But you're welcome, and thank you both.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, right. You should ask him.
Doing that one episode was worth it.
Yeah.
We got you. So.
Exactly. Yeah. I did go to Chain React, the company before that company, because that was fully React Native. I was the only React Native developer, and we needed, we were doing Bluetooth stuff, and I couldn't get it to work because I was working with a company in Italy. They were doing our firmware on the hardware part, and it was hard to communicate with them because they were all Italian, but they hired someone who spoke Arabic. So I would just get on Skype calls with him, and we figured it out a lot of stuff.
Amazing.
And he was like, but no, this is what I need. And I was like, I don't get that. So spoiler, Chain React had someone who had to talk on Bluetooth. And our CTO at the time was like, hey, let's start getting into end-to-end tests and unit test, like, and growing that suite. There was a workshop. So I was like, hey, send me to Portland. I'm going to stay at this rinky-dink hotel in Chinatown to save you some money. And there we go. I'll come back and get it done. And the best story I have around that, which I think I've said on the podcast, I listened to a talk, caught Vlad after the talk. So Vlad was Novak, I think is his last name. He was the one that gave the talk. Talked to him after, and he looked at my I gave him my laptop. I was like, hey, I need help with this. I can't get it to work. And he looked at it and he was like, okay, you need to switch to this library. You need to do this and this. Here's a repo where I do it, and you should be good.
Nice.
Reach out to me on Twitter if you needed it. And I fixed it on the flight home.
Amazing.
Actually. Yeah. So that Chain React kind of grew my interest in React Native and Infinite Red. And that's kind of where I started listening to the podcast. And that's kind of where things went from there.
Amazing. And then you joined Infinite Red in what, 2021?
May of 21.
21,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, May of 21. Yeah. So it'll be 4 years this fall, in 2 months. This summer.
Feels like longer than that.
I know, right? Yeah. It feels like that for me.
But yeah. So somewhere in there, React Native was born, which is what we're talking about.
Getting back to our story. Yeah. Okay. So we started off by saying January 2015, Tom announced it at ReactConf and basically said like, hey, we have it in our apps. It's good. Facebook group app uses it and you're rendering native views. So it's great. Like we're going to open source it soon and everyone can kind of go from there. Now, the best part and what stuck to me was when it was open sourced in March 26th, right? It came out version 0.1. 0.2 came out hours later at like midnight the next day. And then 0.3
it was a busy week.
Out.
It was a busy night, a busy weekend for them.
And then 0.3 was just a couple hours, like 7 hours, I think it was later or something like that. So they were kind of like working on getting it out, fixing all the bugs, all the issues. And it was just iOS, right? At that time.
It was, yeah.
And then eventually kind of grew to being Android also.
I think when they announced Android is when Infinite Red jumped onto the bandwagon. Yeah.
And that was like at the end of that year.
Long.
Yeah. It was like, was it September? It was just, it was towards the end of the year.
It was like August, September of that year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. September 2015 was when they released Android support. Yeah. So I think that's kind of when Infinite Red, I think the idea was Todd was evaluating it at the time.
Yeah. Todd was the one that did the proof of concept.
Yeah. And then brought it up to Jamin.
This is pretty cool.
The rest is history. I know. And I think the reason why we're doing this is we're trying to, this episode on this topic for our listeners, we're going to have a podcast episode that comes out where Jamin, the third musketeer, joins us on that one. I believe we're going to have a blog post that comes out and just kind of, we're going to get all the media out there for you all, however you like to listen to it. And there's some stuff that we might miss here that Jamin covers in a blog post that we cover in our talk, but it's just a nice way for us to... We're just
trying to celebrate the framework that basically is the foundation of our company.
Yeah. And I think Infinite Red
done a lot for
started using React Native on 0.11.
I believe that's right. If you can go back and I think you can, we have it in Slack. We can go back and see.
Yeah, it's between 0.11 or 0.13. It's one of those two versions.
Around there.
Something around there.
I believe when I joined Infinite Red, we were in the 30s somewhere.
Okay.
I remember doing an upgrade to 0.40.
Mm-hmm.
So we must have been in the 30s before that.
You know what's interesting? I was reflecting on this the other day. When I joined the company, it doesn't exist anymore. Fugitive Labs, so the other consultancy where I started with React Native, that was 2017 to 18. Back then, when we had clients come up to us and like, hey, we want this feature in our app, despite it being 2 years old, not even, it's still young, right? We didn't have any issues. We were able to deliver features that native could deliver at the time. It's crazy to think where people are doubting React Native now because it's not, they don't see the 1.0 label or whatever. But back then, when it was only 2 years old, we were still able to deliver features that native apps had, which is crazy. And I love that about where we're at. Yeah. And
it's really fun to go back and read the docs from the old versions because they have the React Native archive, which has all the docs going back to version 5. That's the first one. And just seeing all the components that they had back then.
Should we try screen share?
It was such a small list.
Should we commit to this? Do you want to share your screen or should I share my screen, Robin?
I didn't set up my browser.
I'll do it. Archive, right? And then
I was I have to figure out how to get my bookmarks
like I said,
hidden.
We're trying things out today, so we'll see how it goes. All right.
This is
All right.
This
I
is
hope
all new. There
I'm
you
gonna
go.
zoom in maybe. Okay.
That's the one.
So yeah, this is the archive website.
Yeah. So
Right?
if you
And
go down the bottom and click on version 5.
document. They even have the changelog. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that'll also be fun to see what changes they were making between versions back then. We might even see some of like Gant and Steve in the commits. But if you click on like components,
Oh wow. Look at those
not
little
very
components.
many.
Yeah.
And you can see some relics. There was a lot of iOS only components, but like the navigator, the tab bar, those were part of core. There was no like navigation library at the time.
Yeah. Where's the navigation? There we go. Navigator and Navigator iOS. What's the difference? Yeah. So it's handled differently. Okay. So I guess, back then the whole unified API wasn't a thing. Now it's becoming a thing. So, ooh, I love this. Now everyone's like, don't inline styles.
It's right there in the docs.
Yeah, right.
You should find the style. Oh, where's the section on styling? Let me find it. Oh yeah, up in the top. If you go to get the basics, and you click on style, it's so funny. That it actually tells you that it's fine to do inline styles.
Oh, it does. Where is that?
Well, it's like you can also it's just a plain old JavaScript object. That's the simplest and what we usually use for example code.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But and then it's like style. You can use style sheet to make things cleaner, but never claims that it makes things more performant.
I wonder when the phrase
I don't know where that myth came from.
Yeah, right. I don't know when the word performance kind of came up. So I'm actually going to go back. I want to share just a changelog, see how the first changelog was.
Oh, wow. This will be fun. Oh, it doesn't have like
the commits and stuff.
Release notes. I want to see the commits and stuff.
I don't know if we'll show up on there, but I'm going to mess with the, Brent Vatney. Okay. He's over at Expo now. So that's 6. Ooh, 7. 8. Here we go. Nice.
Animate all the things.
So James Ide.
Oh, that adds the animated library. That was like
the
whole thing.
Yeah. So now you get animations in React Native.
Animate all the things. I love it.
All right. Pick a version, Robin.
Let's do 11 since that's where it started.
So the release includes the initial version of React Native Android.
Oh, that was what we said.
Yeah. And then Node.js. Well, Node 4.0.
Node 4. What are we on now? Like Node 20?
Who knows? You can never keep up with that stuff. If you click the official site, it takes you there. So I want to try one. I think 13. And I don't know why, but 13, I feel like 13, something big happened in 13. So let's see. So, here we go. So in 13, you start having like node modules. So we're no longer publishing React Native to CocoaPods, but are maintaining the pod spec file. So I think this is when you had to start essentially running pod install.
What this means is you can still use CocoaPods to add React Native to your project. So it's worth noting that in React Native's like infancy, it was originally intended as a brownfield solution. Like that's how Meta or Facebook at the time was using it, is to do small pieces of a native app. And so like things like this are speaking to greenfield applications, brownfield applications. Because they're talking about you have a native iOS app and you're using CocoaPods and you want to add React Native to your project, your existing native project. And at some point, I'm not sure when, they shifted to being primarily greenfield applications. But that's an interesting bit of history there.
I told you 13 was the version I wanted to look at. I'm going to try one more version and then, oh,
Lucky
come on.
number 13.
That was version 14. I wanted to see the changelog for that one, but that's fine.
15. Geolocation now works on Android. So there probably a lot of these versions right after 11 are catching Android up
Yeah.
to
Mm-hmm.
a certain level of feature parity.
Yeah.
Cookies are now persisted across network requests on Android. So yeah, lots of Android features.
I mean, and all this stuff, it's pretty cool. Like, let me go back to the archive document real quick. It's pretty cool to kind of see this because, you know, we talk about, I forget what version it was, but when we started like sending stuff off to the community packages, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything was just in here.
The slimmining, whatever they called it. Lean core. That's the official name.
I called it the slimmining on the podcast. I hope that sticks, to be honest with you.
I thought that's what they were officially calling it, but I think...
Hey, on the show, React Native Mornings, we can call it the slimmining. I like that.
Hey, React Native Synergy did not ever take off as the name for the new architecture, and I'm still a little bit bitter about it.
Let's try with the slimmining. See where that goes. You never know.
But yeah, I don't remember what version they started doing that. I think it was in the 50s, maybe.
Let's do that. We'll do that real quick and go from there. So let's say you said 50 documentation.
I'm guessing.
Okay, 50 has a lot of components.
So version 60 was a big version. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look. React Native.
Lean core.
You get to see this live, guys.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the whole objective of this. So here's actually something pretty cool. There we go. So 58 in the docs, WebView has this like maintenance gate thing, whatever it's called. It says deprecated, use the community one. So I think you're right. So
what we're to say 58? Yeah, I think it was in the 50s.
So I think we have to actually go to get to, I'm going to change the URL, to get to version 60. I think you have to go to, let's go to
2019 for what it's worth.
Here we go. Well, not really. How do you get to the docs?
When components? The slimmining was happening.
So let's see. Let's go to version 60 documentation. And where are the components? Components 60. So they're still here, but you can see some of them are starting to go out.
Mm-hmm. Yep, right? I see that, yeah.
So 61, stuff are starting to go out. So yeah, I think version 60 is when it started, but then you can, it wasn't like a immediate, because it's breaking changes, right? For people. There we go. I don't know if you noticed that, but I'm going to go back and forth. Look at that crazy list. And then all of a sudden it's like, bloop.
62, that was it.
Yep. 62, everything was gone. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Now, I'm
gonna stop
curious about things like navigation.
Like and React navigation?
When like the third-party navigation libraries started becoming popular, because I know like when I first started React Native, we were using React Native Router Flux.
Mm-hmm. So was I. I love that package.
And then React Navigation came.
So 1.0. Let's see. I guess we could do it via GitHub, maybe. Let's see. If we do GitHub and look at releases, well,
I can do Router Flux releases. React Native Router Flux releases.
2017 was when React Navigation beta started.
September 2015 is the first version of Router Flux.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It lasted for 2 years. Yeah. I do remember. So 17, like I said, like 17 was kind of when I got into React Native. And you'll notice like 17 is when navigation started coming out.
Yep.
Whereas V1.
So Router Flux was the dominant choice for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so 15 to 18, 3 years of Router Flux, you know, doing your native navigation, and then React Navigation came, and the whole idea was it's native navigation that you're getting. And, you know.
And then eventually we got React Native screens, which made it even more native.
And now we have Export Router. Yeah.
Now we have Export Router, which is still React navigation.
Yeah.
Really. But
Cool. All right. I think we can wrap up now. I think, Robin, this was fun. Nice trip down
This was
memory
fun.
lane. Yeah. You think we should do this again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I can't hear it in my head as anything other than Troy and Abed in the mornings, but as Mazen and Robin in the mornings.
There you go. We need like that, the music kind of thing to happen.
Mazen, Robin in the morning.
There you go.
Yeah. That one.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't get copyright.
Yeah. Just like we couldn't sing Happy Birthday, right? Because that would get us shut down for some reason.
The song Happy Birthday is copyrighted, so we can't sing Happy Birthday to React Native.
That's annoying. Anyways.
Well, happy birthday to React Native. Your double digits. Hopefully we'll be celebrating your 20th
That would be cool.
Before too long.
Yeah. And if you're watching, please, hit us up. Let us know if you enjoyed this, what else you'd like us to do. Because, as of now, I think we have an idea for episode 2. And we're just testing things out, kind of seeing where they're going to go. And hopefully you all enjoy it. And you can find me, I think people know where to find us on socials, but I'm at Mazen Chami kind of everywhere. So,
yep.
And you're at Robin Heinze?
Same.
Everywhere.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh,
Bye.
wait. Okay, we got to do that again. We got to actually cheers at the same time.
All right. And this is not edited, as people are going to find out. We had to do our cheers again because we're not in sync yet.
Okay, ready?
Oh, wait.
Cheers.
Cheers. And stop.